Chapter 19. How I became a Kender is none of your business, Aridin snapped. He took the letter from Mud and strode to the door. Frowning, Mud shoved his hand in his pocket and fingered the puzzle. He hadn't meant to drive Aridin away. He just wanted to learn more about him. Aridin paused before leaving the room. "Thank you," he said, his voice softening, "for the clothing, the food, and a good night's sleep in a real bed. It's been a long time since I had those things. Good luck on your quest." "Wait!" Sunny inside screamed for Mud to be quiet and let Aridin leave, but he ignored it. Instead, he thought of the axe wound Sedai had once gotten that had festered and eventually caused Sedai to lose that arm. "Reverend Son Ilston said you were to help others who are in need of your skills. If they had a cleric with them, Sedai's wound could have healed, and Sedai wouldn't have lost his arm. If you truly are a cleric, we could use your help," Mud said. Hera squealed and clapped her hands. "Oh, I knew you'd come around it, Mud. Of course Aridin has to stay with us. Reverend Son Ilston said he should help someone. You will help us, won't you, Aridin?" Aridin clenched his fists and stared at Mud, Hera, and Drakecutter for a moment. Finally he said, "It seems I have nowhere else to go for now. I might as well help you find this door and whatever lies behind it." "Great," Mud said. "I guess we go back to the library." He led the others downstairs. They crossed the crowded common room and had almost reached the door when Mud heard a snatch of conversation that made him stop. The hooded man was paying the innkeeper for the night's lodging. "Hurry," the man said. "I've got an appointment with Bertram at the library in a few minutes." The innkeeper took his steal and handed back his change in coppers. "Crack, do you think he's found some you're looking for this time? I will sorely miss your patroness if he has." "Crack?" Hera's high-pitched voice cut through the noise in the room. Crack started and turned toward them, pushing back his hood. Mud sucked in a sharp breath. The long dark hair and silver eyes were unmistakable. He was the boy for whom Shannara had received the silver dragon vision. Hera rushed over and gave him a tight hug. Mud shook his head at his sister's impulsive affection. He doubted she would ever change. Karak's eyes widened at Hera's hug. "Do I know you?" Mud pulled Hera away. "You may not remember us. I'm Mud, and this is Hera. We're from Potter's Mill, where you visited the seer Shannara a few years back." Though Mud had grown since then, Karak still towered over him. Karak frowned, and his fingers wrapped around the scroll case he had out earlier. "I remember Shannara, but not neither of you." Drakecutter stepped up beside Mud and Hera. "And I suppose you don't remember me either, though you stayed at my father's house for weeks, while you poked around in the mountains above our village." Karak gave Drakecutter a grim smile. "I can never forget your father's hospitality while I pursue my quest. Nor you, Green Thumb." At the mention of his first name, Drakecutter growled and stepped toward Karak. Mud grabbed his shoulder. A jolt went through Mud as he realized Karak's quest was the same as his own. Shannara had sent Karak after the dragon pendant first. "Karak," Hera chipped, "did you find it? Did you find the pendant? Because Shannara's in trouble and we really need it." Mud winced. Trust Hera to blurt things out. Though the troublesome elves were gone, Aridin stayed behind Mud and Drakecutter unnoticed. A few people nearby had paused in their breakfasting to stare at the impromptu reunion. Karak drew his cloak over the scroll case and dropped his hand to his sword. "What has happened to Shannara?" Aware of the many eyes in the room fixed on him after Hera's outburst, Mud motioned to the front door. "Perhaps we should discuss this outside." "Yes." Karak strode out of the inn. "And I'm late, so we'll have to talk while I head for the library." He marched down the bustling street. Mud hurried to keep stride with the larger boy. "Shannara has been taken by a red dragon. She left a message that I should find the silver dragon and save her." "So you want the pendant?" Karak asked, through gritted teeth. Mud nodded. He hoped Karak would be willing to help. "We thought of find some information about it at the library," Hera said, oblivious to Karak's resentment. "But the library's closed for cleaning. If you have an appointment, though, maybe you could convince them to let us in." Drakecutter cleared his throat. "Unless you've already found the pendant, in which case you might consider letting us use it, perhaps." Correct stopped, both fists on his sword hilts now, his face tense, his eyes glazed, as if fighting some inner battle. It lasted only a moment, then he dropped his gaze to stare at his boots. If I had the pendant, I would let you use it to save Shannara. Unfortunately, I have not yet located it. Correct started walking again. Bertram, the high senior, has been researching it for me. I'm going right now to see if he has found anything. But you'll let us come, won't you? Hera asked. You will help us. Yes, I'll help you. His face hardened and a look of grim determination came into his eyes. Mud could tell Karak didn't want him along, but he couldn't let that stop them. Karak climbed the steps to the library's public wing and tried the door. To Mud's surprise, it was unlocked, and they stepped into a tall antechamber filled with sunlight. The choking smell of wood polish hung heavy on the air. The ornate ceramic drawings Mud had seen on the doors and bookshelves the night before continued in the chamber's marble walls. The sounds of cleaning and the scrape of rearranging furniture came through an arched doorway. Correct stepped beneath the arch and called out. A young boy wearing an ink-stained brown apron over flowing robes raced up and slipped to a stop in front of Crack. He held a cake of polish in one hand and a rag in the other. I have an appointment to see Bertram, Karak said. The boy's eyes widened and he dropped the polish. Karak's hand shot out and caught it before it hit the floor. Will you tell him that Karak is here? Will me? Go to Bertram's office? The boy glanced back the way he came. Master Azena, he cried. An older ascetic strolled into his chamber and sent the boy scurrying back to his work. Ah, Karak, he said. We have been expecting you. Unfortunately, a personage of great importance arrived last night, and Bertram is occupied at the moment. However, I have been working with him on your project, and would be happy to help you. He motioned Karak through the arch, but held up his hand when Mud and the others tried to follow. I'm sorry, the library is closed today. It's all right, they're with me, Karak said. The Kender too? Azan asked with a grimace. Karak whirled around to stare at Iriden. Mud, is that the Kender from the inn? Iriden can read the runes on Shannara's picture. Mud rested a hand on Iriden's bony shoulder. He's offered to help, must find the door. Ha! The ascetic said. He says he can read the runes. Not even I can. Only a fool would leave that from a Kender. Perhaps he should wait outside, Mud, Karak said. We don't want to have anything going missing from the library. Hera spluttered in outrage and reached for her long knives. To Mud's surprise, Iriden grabbed her hand before she could draw. Books are valuable, Hera. You can't begin to understand the hours it takes, penning each page. He looked at Azenda. I can assure you I would never harm anything in this library, but since I know you won't believe me, I'll just wait outside. No, Hera said. Iriden stays with us, Mud agreed. If we encounter more text like that in the drawing, we'll need him to read it. I promise I'll make sure he doesn't get into any trouble. Azenden shook his head in exasperation. If you hadn't donated so much steel to the library, Karak, I would never allow this, but I suppose I have no choice. Come with me. Bertram has selected a number of books, which may or may not be of some help. Azenden led them into a large hall, where young ascetics scurried about, moving tables, scrubbing the floor, washing windows, and polishing lecterns that had thick books chained to them. Mud slipped on the soapy floor and would have fallen if Draycutter hadn't caught him from behind. Watch your step, the dwarf muttered. They left the public section behind and came into a smaller room with a heavy bookshelf against one wall and a couple of tables in the middle. Two ascetics, an older man and a woman, stood beside several stacks of books on one side of the tables. Oh, Azena, said Master Bertram, Mistress Natir. He bowed so deeply to the woman that his nose seemed to touch his knees. I didn't realize you were here. Quite all right, Azena, Bertram said. He left the woman's side and drew Azena to the door. Natiri has decided to meet with Karak. Azena stared at Karak in startled amazement as Bertram ushered him out of the room. End of chapter 19.